Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining this webinar. Build, manage, and deploy mobile apps faster with the mobile AppCloud, with the AppCloud Mobile. My name is Eugene Oxman, and I've been here at Salesforce for almost 7 years. For the entire time, I've either been working on the platform or on mobile. And for the last couple of years, I've been working on the Mobile SDK and the efforts to consolidate a lot of our mobile offerings. So I'm very excited about AppCloud Mobile and everything we're going to share today. I'd also love to introduce my colleague, Christoph. Christoph, please tell us something about yourself.
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Christoph Conrads, and I'm a developer evangelist here at Salesforce and doing a lot with mobile as well.
Excellent. So let's get started. Our presentation today is going to cover on a lot of functionality that's available, but also some of the concepts we're going to show you are definitely forward-looking. We love to share a lot of our research and show you where we're going, and that's why we're asking for a lot of feedback. But keep in mind that you shouldn't make your purchasing decisions on things that are not currently generally available. If you want to get details about this statement, please go to our website. We're also very social. We love to collaborate. You can find us on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. Developers talk to us on GitHub, pretty much every major channel. So please post your questions, file bugs and requests, and we'll get back to you. And finally, for today's webinar, we do encourage questions. Don't wait until they ask to ask. If you have something, raise it right away. We'll do our best to get around to everybody, and stick around till the end. Sometimes the Q&A portion is definitely the most interesting part. And also go to our developer forums. If you have a product questions, tweet to us. Don't hesitate to ask. We definitely want to be part of this conversation. So let's get started. First, I want to introduce AppCloud Mobile. We've launched this product last month, and we're really proud of the fact that we have a solution that lets you build, run, and manage your mobile apps on one platform. AppCloud Mobile is comprehensive, and this is really important for enterprises. There are a lot of different use cases that you might have within your organization, and we wanted to make sure that we provide functionality for all sorts of developers, whether you're just getting started or you know exactly what you're doing and need a full stack platform with control over every single layer. AppCloud Mobile gives both of that. We're also very connected. You connect to your Salesforce data. You connect to APIs, as well as to sometimes legacy systems like SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, or pretty much any other API that might live on the cloud or on-prem. Use cases for connecting legacy data to mobile apps is very, very common, and we've made it easier than ever before. AppCloud Mobile is secure, to the point that developers and admins don't have to worry about a lot of the pitfalls that come with some of the competing platforms. Once you put a security model in place, the power of the Salesforce platform just takes care of everything else with roles and profiles. And finally, we're fully scalable, so you can build anything for 5 users or 5 million users. We have support for elasticity and can grow with your application needs. We power everything from small departmental apps to consumer apps with millions of live users. We also have a lot to offer, a lot. This is a collection of everything that we've been doing pretty much since we've introduced the platform. And that's how we enable developers to build app fast, either with code or with models. And more importantly, allowing the combination of the two. So for developers that like write code, we have SDKs. We have support for multiple language, numerous add-ons and services, workflow and tooling tools, command line systems, automated data stores, GitHub integration, microservices architectures. Pretty much anything you could think of, if you have a way to code it, you can be supported in AppCloud Mobile. And also we support model-driven development. Not everybody wants to build and code apps for small use cases. What makes mobile apps unique is that sometimes they last for a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks. And so it doesn't always make sense to put in a lot of effort. And that's why we offer quick model-driven tools with Lightning App Builder that also give you the ability to instantly deploy these apps, select from a library of components, extend the user interface, take advantage of security, offline, data processing, workflow, and a lot of different connections. Like I've said, we pretty much have something for everybody with this platform. So let's dive into the details. This is how we think about the AppCloud mobile architecture. We look at it in 4 different layers. You can think at the very top of the mobile UI frameworks. Below, you have the mobile development services or some of the tools you might use. The platform that you select, whether it's Force.com for some of the model-driven aspects, or coding with Apex, or you can go with Heroku if you need elasticity or complete control, and of course, integration approaches, because apps are powered by data, and the closer you are to your customer data, the better you're going to get the app experience. And that's how we're able to get information from OData sources, from APIs, as well as from any REST party, or taking advantage of our brand new Thunder platform that can connect million devices with the Internet of Things. So if we start looking at these layers, a lot of these logos and technologies will become familiar. You can use Salesforce One. You can use our SDK to build apps, or you can use Heroku to start introducing some of these app experience. In the next couple of slides, I'm going to walk you through these various approaches. So for example, if you're building an app with Salesforce One, this allows you to leverage Salesforce One as an app container. So even if you don't use any Sales Cloud functionality, if you don't use opportunities, etc., you can take advantage of Salesforce One as a very flexible app container and start pushing all of your customizations directly inside Salesforce One. Typically, most of those apps are built using our Lightning Visual App Builder as well as the Process Builder. And these are very, very powerful technologies. Underneath, you would have access to our objects, to business data, to processes, and then you can expose them using communities and, of course, take advantage of the same identity policies, security, and whatnot, while using technologies like Salesforce Connect and APIs to get access to third-party data sources. We have lots of customers that typically do this. For them, Salesforce One is the go-to platform, the go-to app container, and they're able to quickly turn around apps and deploy them to the users once they have it installed. This is a very, very powerful way to get started with mobility. If you don't want to build custom apps, if you don't want to manage them, go with Salesforce One and start rolling out some of these custom solutions. If you want to dive deeper into code, we have the Mobile SDK. The Mobile SDK gives you pretty much best of both worlds. You take advantage of all the services provided by our platform, like push notifications, offline data synchronization, a client-side encrypted database that will dynamically adapt to some of the metadata changes you might make on the server, identity providers, and access to mobile device management policies. Pretty much all of the requirements you might have for an enterprise app, automatically built into the Mobile SDK. And at the UI layer, you have the choice. If you want to build a web or a hybrid app, go with Lightning or go with any of your favorite technologies like Cordova, Polymer, Angular, Ionic, and now React and React Native. Or build a native app. Use Xcode or Android Studio or Visual Studio for Microsoft to use native code to access the data from the Force.com platform using the very same services. We have a consistent set of implementations. And so underneath the hood, you're still accessing the very same data that can also appear inside Salesforce One or your Lightning experience without much modifications. This is the power of the platform and how we're able to get a lot of that stuff done. And of course, at the same time, the integration services are identical. You're still using Salesforce Connect if you want to access Oracle or any third-party services, as well as Thunder or any of the APIs. And finally, we have the elastic approach with Heroku. This allows developers to build full stack apps and have control over every single layer of the application. So now if you want to use something like Postgres or Redis or Kafka, or you want to use languages like Node.js with JavaScript, or you want to use Python, you have that flexibility. You can use Heroku Connect to sync all of that data back into Salesforce if you want to take advantage of the Salesforce One platform or some of the Sales Cloud capabilities. But all in all, it's all going to be connected. These three different approaches are radically different, and that's fine, but they're all part of the exact same platform. And this is how we're going to enable developers to work together. This is how we're going to enable organizations to invest in one platform to solve a lot of their enterprise needs. If you walk around an enterprise, you're going to see that they have developers of different skill sets. There are pockets of developers that have preferences for Angular or Ionic or some other framework, and that's fine. We are completely inclusive. We welcome every single technology. And this is why we solicit feedback. We want to grow with you. We want to make sure that we give you hooks, API connections, libraries, SDKs that help you do your job, that help you build your app while connected to the enterprise data. And I'll leave off with the slide for our Mobile SDK. And this is probably going to be at the heart of a lot of your application, but it definitely highlights the way we think about building apps. We want to let you build apps that are beautiful, that are custom, that use any technology. But we don't want you to compromise on your decisions based on API limitations or certain choices. We are a unified platform that lets you access all of our services regardless of your technology preferences. So like I've said, if you want to build a native app, great. You'll have access to the very same technology and APIs. You want to build a hybrid app? Phenomenal. We'll give you access to the exact same APIs and features. This means you're going to have an organization that lets you build a portfolio of apps using lots of different technologies. And that's fine. You don't need one singular approach. And once you get started, we'll give you powerful libraries like SmartSync for managing your data, pulling tens of thousands of records onto your device and dealing with conflict management. We'll give you SmartStore that gives you a dynamic encrypted database, enterprise-grade identity and security with Touch ID for authorization and authentication. Of course, the same services that are important to mobile, like push notifications, access to communities, files, MDM policies. We have everything. And now I'd like to hand over this presentation to Christophe, who's going to walk you through a couple of demos that highlight these capabilities.
Thank you, Eugene. So here's what we're going to talk about. Basically what I will do, I'll try to illustrate all the points that Eugene just made with some demos that hopefully will present these use cases. So we'll start with Salesforce One for employee-facing applications. Then we will look at the Mobile SDK for customer-facing applications, and I'll look at different implementations or different ways to use the Mobile SDK, either with hybrid architecture, Cordova, Ionic, and that kind of stuff. And then we'll look at a native implementation as well. And then I want to demonstrate some of these mobile services that Eugene was talking about. So for instance, we'll look at push notification, identity management, and offline sync. And then at the end, we'll look at some of the deployment options of your mobile applications, including Heroku. So with that, I will start the application here in Salesforce as you know it. And this is to kind of recognize that no matter the type of application that you're building, there is a set of core requirements that you always have. It doesn't matter if it's a customer-facing or employee-facing application. Usually there is some data that you need to manipulate, which means data entry, which means security, which may mean going social about the data. And the good news with AppCloud Mobile is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel there, because all that, as you know, is provided by the platform. So I'm going to use here an example, a sample application that is essentially a real estate app. And so what it does, it lets real estate brokers manage their properties. So for instance, in Salesforce, they could take a look at and manage all the properties that they have for sale, and they can look at engagement, who like these properties, probably in the mobile app, the customer-facing app. They can look at the social feed, like all the price changes and all that. And so all that is essentially available by default. As you know, this is essentially a low-code or no code at all approach, up to this point. But we also recognize that this UI may not be everything you need, and you may want to customize it in some ways, and that may involve some code. And as you know, the way to kind of extend this would be using Lightning components. And the reason I'm mentioning that here in the context of this mobile webinar is that we will see how everything you do here automatically translate or is automatically available in your mobile application. So I will do a very quick customization here in Salesforce. So I'm going to customize that page layout. And so I'm going to add a number of components. So for instance, at the bottom of this page, I may add a map to locate the property on the map. I may add a picture gallery here to quickly update pictures of that property. and maybe some tools like a mortgage calculator here that I will add like 2 different components. And there we go. So we, with just a few components, we have something a lot more interesting. So I'm gonna save that here and go back to the page. Because we cache these pages pretty dramatically to improve performance, I will have to refresh the page here to see these components at work. So you see the mortgage calculator there. So for instance, if I change the rate, you would see that automatically the amortization table would reflect the new values. You see the map here, the property positioned on a map. And then at the very top, I had that picture gallery. So if I went to visit that property and had a picture that I want to upload, I can do that very quickly. And then, this company is kind of at the cutting edge of the real estate business. So they start to integrate connected home features. So for instance, let's say that I have an appointment with you and I'm gonna, show you that property in an hour. I have an action here. You see that smart home button, and I can click that. And so, for instance, what I could do, I could, before going, I could set the temperature to something more comfortable, or, and we'll start at 0 here. Let me actually try to see if I can show you this. So this is actually a camera looking at the light, and right here from from Salesforce using this component, let me move that a little bit, I should be able then to kind of turn on the lights in that connected house so that when we show up, the house is nice and welcoming. So that's all good. It works really well. So I'm going to turn that off for now, and we're good. Okay, so my point here is that everything that we just did is automatically available to the brokers in the Salesforce One mobile app, because of course they could work on these properties, at the office in the browser, but they could also, work on these same properties in the mobile app. So what I'm going to show you here is simply my phone. So this is not the emulator. I'm just streaming my phone here using QuickTime. Okay, I'm going to do this. Here we go. Let me move that a little bit. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to start Salesforce One. And of course, as you know, so everything, so I'm going to start maybe in the feed. So, without writing any code, this is, again, low code, no code approach, if you want, to mobile. I have my social feed, so I can see all the price reductions or any activity that happened on any of these properties. But I also have some other tools. So for instance, and that was one of the points that I wanted to make, these same components that we used in the browser version, these Lightning components automatically are available in the Salesforce One mobile app. So when you build it, you can use it in the browser, you can use it in the Salesforce One mobile app as well. So for instance, I'm going to again change the rate here, and you see that my amortization table here automatically reflects the new values. So let's take a look at some of these properties that we were managing in the browser. So I can create multiple views here. I can select a property. Again, I have access to all the data, different pictures and things like that. And again, as the broker, maybe I will visit the property and, I'm going to take new pictures that I want to share with other brokers so they have a good idea of what that property looks like. So I'm going to try that now. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to attach a new picture of the office, and I'm going to try to do that live. So I'm going to take a picture. Here we go. So that's the office in that property. Okay, use, okay, submit. And here we go. And so all that now has been added to the social feed automatically. So if I look at the social feed, you see that it's automatically shared with whoever is following that property, and it's automatically available in the social feed. So another thing that I wanted you to see is, remember that smart home component that we looked at before. So imagine, for instance, that as the broker, I'm showing up now at the property because I'm meeting you there for a visit, but because this is indeed a smart home, so a connected home, instead of looking for the key somewhere in a logbox, you see that at the bottom of my screen here, I have that same smart home action. And so I'm going to do this. I'm going to click that. And so this is, again, the exact same component. So what I can do, for instance, I can open the door right there from my phone. In fact, if some of you came at the Trailhead DX conference, we demonstrate that on the floor and in the keynote with a smart lock. It's hard to do it in a webinar, but you get the idea. Maybe the best I can do here, I'm going to see if I can bring my light back again here. And so this time from my phone, you know, I'm going to, again, turn on the lights in that property, and here we go. All right, so the point that I'm trying to make with this specific component is that sometimes, you know, people think, oh, okay, Salesforce One, it's great. You know, if you do the default stuff, if you just manage, you know, lists and forms. But the point is, you can really customize it, and you know, with things completely unexpected, like for instance, you know, this kind of IoT component here. All right, so that's that. So I'm going to close this. So now I want to shift gears a little bit. So, you know, in the case of this real estate company, you know, they used Salesforce One for employee-facing apps, and it made total sense because most of the app, again, was built without any code. But as you can imagine, they also want to make a customer-facing application available to their customers. And that's a kind of a different type of experience that they want, okay? And so that application was built here with the Mobile SDK. So it's called Dreamhouse, and let's see what it looks like. So first of all, I have to recognize that these users, these customers, they are not familiar with my business the same way my own employees are. So I need a more kind of, you know, friendly, user-friendly experience. Like for instance here, I'm starting with that kind of gallery, you know, explaining a little bit about the application, how it works, and things like that. And so this is a completely custom experience you control as the developer, and I will show you some code in a second. You control every single pixel on the screen, and you can really build the experience that you want. So I'm looking for a house, so I'm going to look at the properties here. So I can, for instance, take this one, and okay, it looks great. So I'm going to favorite that property, so you can see that it's added to my favorites. I'm going to take a look at this one, looking great too. So I'm going to add that to my favorites. I can get to the broker, get information about the broker, call, text, things like that, email. And of course, it keeps track of my favorites. I'm going to go here in the favorites screen. Again, as I mentioned before, the experience is what people expect, like a totally native experience. Or let me actually delete this one. And here we go, and then I can go back to the property there. So that's pretty cool, and as you can see, this is using the exact same properties. This is actually this very property that you see on the right of my screen here. But so this is all good, but now we want to create a little more engagement with these customers. For instance, let's say that this property is not selling. So as the broker, you know, managing that property, maybe what I want to do is reduce the price, right? Because maybe it's a little too high. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to reduce that to 720 here. So let's do that. And as I'm doing that, you see that automatically, because I'm actually inside the application, I get a push notification message right there in the app. Notice though that if I wasn't in the app at all, if I'm here on my home screen, and I change the price again, then you have the default kind of native experience for push notification messages. You get it here. It's right there, and this is what you expect, and then you tap it and you get back into your application. So this is one of the mobile services that are part of AppCloud Mobile, and I wanted to show you a little bit how this works, so how this was implemented. So first of all, as Eugene mentioned, push notification is a service that's built into the platform. So I'm going to show you how that is actually implemented. So I'm going to go in setup here. Now, when you create an application like that, that uses your data and connects to your data, you have to create what we call a connected app, and that's kind of a default kind of thing to do. Like, for instance, if you were to create an application that uses Facebook data, you need to go on Facebook and create an app. And then you get, a consumer key, you get an OAuth, parameters like a callback URL and that kind of stuff. So we do the exact same thing here. So I'm going to make this a little bigger. So at the bottom here, you see my connected apps. So there is one, it's called Dreamhouse. So I'm going to click that. And you see things, the kind of things that I was talking about, like, for instance, the OAuth, like the consumer key, the consumer secret, callback URLs and things like that. But if you pay attention here, you will notice that you have that push messaging enabled. So this is not something that you have to build custom. It's totally kind of standard in the platform. So how is that actually configured? Let's take a quick look. I'm going to edit that connected app property. So here by the way, you notice that you can define all the properties, the type of access that you want to give to the connected app and that kind of stuff. But here we are interested in push notification. So okay, you say, okay, I want push notification, so I'm going to enable that. You need a certificate. So for instance, this is an Apple configuration. So in your Apple developer portal, you're going to have to create a push certificate. There is no way around that. That's managed by Apple. So once you created that certificate, you upload it here and you specify the password of your certificate, and then you are done. And at this point, your org is ready to send push notification messages when appropriate. So when is it appropriate? That's a business decision. When do you want to send these message to the user? You remember that in this case, we want to do that when there is a price change. So we think about what we're trying to do here. Every single time there is a price change, we want to push a notification message. Of course, there are many ways we could do that, writing a lot of code, but in this case, we can totally do that without code, or at least with very little code. Because if you think about it, this is really process automation. Every single time the price is reduced, we want to push a message. So I'm going to show you how this is actually implemented in this specific application. So for process automation, mostly without code, there is in AppCloud a very useful tool for that called Process Builder. So I'm going to open that, and you see that I have a number of processes here, but the one that I'm really interested in is price change push notification. So let's open that and see how it was actually defined. So we are working on the property object, so in other words, houses. And so the first condition here, and only one in this process, is there a price change? Okay. How did we implement that condition? Simply, again, declaratively, there is an operator is changed on the price property, and if change is true, then we fall into this condition. And what do? We implement an immediate action that I called push notification. Now, in this case, we actually don't have a standard action to push a message. So in this case, there is just a little bit of code that we implemented to be able to send that notification message. But the point is most of the process, checking the condition, when was the record updated, all that was done entirely declaratively, okay? So we say, okay, we want to execute that piece of code, that's an Apex class, and we will pass the property ID so that we can send a meaningful message to the user. So I'm sure that some of you want to see what that code looks like. So let's take a quick look. As you can see, it's very, very, very concise. So to be able to invoke a method like that from Process Builder, you need to declare an invocable method in Apex. This is, of course, bulkified, but in this specific case, I really don't want to work in bulk, because imagine that you would import a set of properties. I don't want to spam people with, 2,000 push notifications message. So for a good reason, in this case, I'm just handling the first property, because we are just interested in single property updates here. So because I will receive the property ID, the first thing that I'm going to do is to run a quick query to find the price of the property, the name, the address, and things like that, so that I can actually build, as you can see here on the next line, a meaningful message that I will push to the user. And then the magic of the Mobile SDK and AppCloud Mobile in this case is that we have these high-level classes, like in this case messaging, and essentially it has a very simple method here to actually send a message, to all the users. Actually, in this case, the users who favorited that property, and you are good to go. So this is how push notification is implemented here. So that's one of the mobile services that we talked about before, but I wanted to talk about one that's very important, and that is actually identity and identity management. So I didn't show that to you initially, but I'll show it to you now. So for instance, in the menu here, I could log out from this from this application, and if I log out, I'm back to a login screen. So now this is obviously the default login screen. For an application like this one, where it's a customer-facing app, obviously your users are not standard Salesforce users. They are part, if you want, of that community, your customers who are looking for users. So instead of a standard Salesforce login like this one, you can use a community login and community users, and log in with community users. And in that case, you can completely customize the login screen here so that it really looks and feels like your brand. And of course, you can also add social login. So talking about that, I just wanted to show you now in code, and I'm going to start here in the hybrid version of that app. Remember, I'll show you shortly a native implementation of the same app. So what we're looking at here is an Ionic 2. So basically, the application that I demonstrated so far is built with the very new Ionic 2, about to go GA, I think, very soon. And it's obviously using Angular 2. As Eugene mentioned, that is just one choice, one of the many choices that you have, and we're totally agnostic there. But I just wanted to show you how simple, using the SDK, how simple it is to manage identity. So with the Mobile SDK, you will have to initialize your app with the consumer key that we looked at when you created the consumer app. And then with a simple login function here, you can actually log into your application, and all that is really taken care of by the platform, and there is no low-level implementation that you have to code. And because it's Salesforce, you know that it's safe and that it's reliable, and that's really what you're building your app with, no kind of custom implementation of identity management here. Okay, and since we are looking at the code here, this is also a really interesting code right here, where we kind of customize the way we deal with push messages that come from Salesforce. So we can customize the way they will look and the way they will sound. And then if your application is in the foreground, as you can see here, so in other words, if you are using it, then we display a custom message, because in that case, we are in charge of handling the message. Remember that your application doesn't even have to be running for you to get the message, but then if your application is not running, the message is really taken care of by the operating system, by the mobile OS. All right, so that's kind of a little bit how the code would look like using the Mobile SDK for identity management and for push notifications. So I promised I would show you another implementation of the very same app. So again, on my screen there on the left, so the first version was Ionic based. And the second version is actually React-based. And as we mentioned before, all the code is available to you. I will point you to the repositories if you're interested in looking at one of the different implementations of this application. So this one is built with React Native. So we are still kind of polishing some of the styles, but it looks great already, and I will show you some code in a second, because we are looking at a very interesting approach, and this is definitely one of the places where we could use some feedback from you. Okay, so it's the exact same kind of application. We can look at the broker. We have different menu options and things like that. So let me take a quick look at the code with you. So I'm going to look here at the React implementation. So for people who have done React, even if it's not React Native, this will look extremely familiar, because it's essentially JavaScript with React's own JSX here. But let me actually start at the very beginning. So that's really the kind of initial kind of bootstrap file of your application. And so in this case, in addition to providing the usual services like identity management, push notification, and things like that, we have that approach that we are kind of experimenting with, where we provide higher level components. Like, for instance, if you look at the property detail view here, you will see that we have these objects like S-object container. And so this is essentially the beginning of a metadata framework, because even though this application is entirely custom, oftentimes lists and forms, they kind of look alike. And with a minimum level of customization, you can get something really good. So you still have the option to go completely custom, but we also can help you by pulling the metadata from Salesforce and creating a default UI that, by the way, is based on the Lightning design system, but that you can entirely customize. So this is one of the things that we would definitely like feedback on. Is that something that's of interest to you, like a metadata framework for building these mobile applications where you essentially get meta components that you don't have to kind of hand code by yourself? Is something that would be interesting. So for the rest, it's traditional React Native. I'll point you to all the repositories in a couple of minutes here. All right, one more thing that I wanted to show you live and then discuss some code elements with you is offline synchronization. So in terms of services, we spoke about identity, we spoke about push notification. Offline synchronization is actually a very important service in a mobile application. And in fact, some people use it for offline, so to basically access data while offline, but other people also use it for fast access to data, especially when you have a kind of a slow connection. If your data is fairly static, you can pull the data from the local store instead of making a REST request, and then keep everything in sync. So the Mobile SDK comes with a series of utilities to help you do that. So for instance, first there is a Smart Store, which is an encrypted client-side data store. And then there is the Smart Sync library that lets you synchronize your local data with your server data. So just to give you an idea, and this is essentially just a Smart Store. So the first thing I will do here in this application is actually load data from the server. And I added some messages here so we understand what's happening. So I just called the REST service to actually retrieve my data from the server. So that's your default kind of stuff. You get data using REST services. But you see that I did something else. Since I got the data from the server, I took that opportunity to actually store the data in my local store, and that is what this message says here. So I'm gonna clear my list here, and now I'm gonna load that from my local data store. So at this point, I'm able to get to my data without making any REST call to the server. So you can, at this point, it's your responsibility to decide when and how you want to use that. You could always default to your local store for absolute performance, or you can decide that you're only going to use the Smart Store when you are actually offline. At this point, it's totally your responsibility. All the data in Smart Store is stored in what we call a soup, which is essentially just kind of an object and a data set, if you want, in the Smart Store. So for instance, if I deleted that data store or data set, so it's deleted. Obviously, at this point, if I wanted to retrieve from the data store, it wouldn't work because I just cleared it. So I would have to go back to the server first, and now I would be able to do that, to go back to that data store again. Since we have a couple of minutes, I want to quickly try to show you something that I think is pretty cool. So I'm going to use Safari here to do some local debugging. Here we go. All right. So you know that you can do some remote debugging using Safari if you have a hybrid app here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to clear the list again and load from Smart Store. And so the reason I'm doing that is to show you the kind of performance that you get here, which I think is totally amazing and speaks for itself in terms of how fast Smart Store is, but can make you think about when you want to use that. So again, some people use that just for fast data access, even when they are actually connected to the network. And you see that if I press it consistently, it's here around 20 milliseconds to actually kind of retrieve the data from the local data store. So let me close this. In terms of code for this, you'll see that it's super easy code. So okay, so the first thing I did here was load from server. So I'm using again the Mobile SDK to invoke a REST service with a query here. So normal stuff. But the additional thing that I'm doing, line 22 here, is I'm also storing the result set to Smart Store. And as you can see here, this is actually done through the plugin. So in fact, behind the scenes, it's done with native code. And we kind of upsert these entries. So if they are already in the Smart Store, we just update them. Okay, and then to load from the Smart Store, there are different ways of doing it. So this is just one implementation where you can actually use what we call Smart SQL here to retrieve your data from the Smart Store. Remember, this is just one piece of the puzzle. So, how do you kind of store data in a secure fashion at the client side? And in addition to that, we have that Smart Sync API that automatically synchronizes your data with Salesforce. Okay, so there is one last thing that I wanted to quickly show you. So I will clean up my screen a little bit here. So I have, since the application that I showed you, at least one of the versions was hybrid, I can actually load it right here in the browser, right? It's hybrid, so it's also at the same time, a mobile app that you can actually access from the browser, which is great. So this specific version of the application is deployed on Heroku, and we will quickly review the architectures that Eugene described in the first part of this presentation, but I wanted to quickly, access one of these properties here. You see that, okay, we have a price right now of 700,000. Okay, let's see if we can access that. Okay, so that actually matches here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change the price one more time to 680, let's say. Okay, can do that. We could actually stream that right to the app if we wanted to, but in this case I didn't do it. But you see, you should see, maybe I need to go there one more time. And okay, so for some reason the price didn't update here. Maybe I'm not on the same org, but that's okay. I just wanted to show you the architecture that is behind the scenes here. And before I do that, I want to kind of review all the architectures that Eugene talked about. So, and this, by the way, is the link that I will give you in a second, where all the code for these applications that we demonstrated today is available at. So a first possible architecture and a first possible deployment of this specific use case looks like this, right? You have your employee productivity app built on Salesforce One that goes directly, obviously, to your force.com instance. And you can build a customer engagement app with the Mobile SDK and use the REST APIs to again go straight to force.com and get your data from there. And that would work totally fine unless you are kind of a very large company, and let's say, I don't know, you're Macy's, for instance, and it's like holiday season, and now you have millions or billions of people hitting your Salesforce instance. Maybe you want to scale slightly differently. Maybe you want full control over, which regions, for instance, you want to scale, and which regions don't need additional scalability for that specific period of time in the year. So another option to essentially deploy the same app is to point your application not to force.com straight, but to Heroku, which holds a cache of your data. And then you use Heroku Connect to actually synchronize the Salesforce data with a local Postgres SQL database. And this is kept in sync automatically, and your mobile application goes straight to Heroku, that you can scale on demand in all the ways you want, okay? So depending on the type of application that you're building, depending on your audience, things like that, you may choose one or the other. The message here is that it's really a kind of a deployment time decision, because the data still comes and is managed in force.com, and in this case you kind of have a cache that you can distribute and scale on demand. So how do you implement an architecture like this one? Let me quickly show you this. So I'm going to go in my Heroku dashboard here where I created an application. I think this application is called My Dream House. Okay, and in that Heroku application, I installed Heroku plugin or add-on called Heroku Connect. So I'm going to click on that. It's automatically going to give me some information about how much I'm using it. Okay, but most importantly here, it's going to show me the configuration of Heroku Connect. And basically, you'll recognize here the naming convention. These are my custom objects defined in Salesforce that I mapped so that they are replicated automatically in my Postgres database. So let's just take a look at one configuration here. So Heroku Connect at this point pulls all the metadata, so in this case, all the custom fields from that custom object, and then I can select which ones I really want to, to replicate in that Postgres database, because it may be that the customer-facing application is only interested in a subset of all my data, so I selected the ones that I'm interested in. And then I can specify how I want the replication to happen. So I can do polling, or I can use the streaming APIs. If I do polling, you specify a poll frequency. And so in this case, I'm using the free version of the plugin. So the minimum polling frequency is 10 minutes. But if you use the paid version, then you can go as low as you want. Or you can also use the streaming API, which means that as soon as a change is made in Salesforce, a message is going to be pushed to Heroku, and the local Postgres database is going to be updated automatically. All right, so this is really going back now to Eugene last architecture. This is really the architecture that puts all the pieces together. You are actually still using Salesforce One for employee facing. For customer facing, you are building something completely custom using either hybrid or native. I showed you both. You use all these different mobile services, push, offline sync, the encrypted database identity. Even though it's a completely custom database, we still use Process Builder to actually, define the automated process. Everything is defined model-driven in force.com, so that's the source of truth, if you want, for your data. But for on-demand elastic scalability, we cached the data locally on a Postgres database that we can scale on demand in a completely custom fashion per region or whatever you'd like to do. And that is really kind of the solution that brings all the pieces together. And that was also essentially the summary, reviewing AppCloud Mobile and everything it has to offer. Remember, you can choose the type of mobile app that you want to build, either in a more of a model-driven approach with a low-code or no-code approach, and that's Salesforce One that you can download from the app stores, and everything you do in Salesforce automatically is available in that app. Or you can build something completely custom. We give you a number of application services and mobile services to make the development of that application easy, including identity, encrypted database, offline sync, push notification, and then many different deployment options so that you can really build what you want and scale the way you need. And so that's really kind of the summary for all the demos that I showed you. So in terms of resources, I will point you to two sites that have actually a collection of links that you may be interested in. So the first one is a kind of a mini portal for AppCloud Mobile that we created for you. It's developer.salesforce.com/devcenter/mobile. And then the second link that I wanted to share with you is dreamhouseapp.io. It has videos of many of the demos that I showed today. It has links to the repositories, including the Ionic app, the React Native app. So everything is there. The code is yours, including the IoT connections and things like that. Turn on the lights. It's all there. We hope this webinar was useful, and we certainly would like to hear your feedback. So we have a link here if you want to participate. That would be extremely helpful to us. So it's a bit.ly link, bit.ly/AppCloud Mobile. I'll give you a couple of seconds to write that down if you want to take part in the survey. And now, as we indicated at the beginning of this webinar, we have time to answer some questions. So what I will have to do is this. And Eugene is gonna help me here to actually go through the questions and try to answer as many as we can. Eugene, did you have a chance to take a first look?
Yeah, I do. Let's. I can stay long, so let's go and try to answer all of these questions, and I'll just go through them one by one. The first question, will this work with older versions of iOS 7.1.2? Unfortunately not. Today, Salesforce 1 requires iOS 9.2, and the Mobile SDK requires iOS 8.0 as the minimum. If you absolutely need support for an older version of iOS, you can also use an older version of the Mobile SDK. I believe that our 3.0 release does support iOS 7 and has a lot of the functionality that we talked about. How focused is this for building customer-facing apps and not just for enterprise users? Really wondering how this can scale on the end and not get the dreaded spinning wheel. And I saw a number of questions that deal with customer-facing apps, with scale, with branding. How do people find them in the App Store? And the answer is we absolutely support customer-facing apps, both with the Force.com model approach and with the Heroku Elastic approach. You can use the Mobile SDK, powered by either community or identity licenses, to create a fully branded native or hybrid app that you would build by yourself, self-sign, and publish to the app stores. The customers of your client can download them, and they would never know that the app is running on Salesforce because the app is 100% branded. It doesn't have any of the Salesforce references, the colors, or logos. We have customers like Meijer out of Australia, a giant retailer that has been using the Mobile SDK and community licenses along with Marketing Cloud to power their loyalty program. And we have a number of other customers that have millions of users that unfortunately we can't reference. So yes, we do scale. Yes, we do support community licenses and identity licenses. And we believe that this is a very compelling platform to build loyalty apps or any other customer-facing app that might want to leverage data that's already inside Salesforce or something that's coming in with Salesforce Connect. There was a question about integration with CI. Is it command line or continuous integration? We support both. We have command line support and continuous integration. Internally, that's how we build mobile SDK apps. We use Jenkins and do constant testing whenever code updates are pushed. How can we use Lightning apps using the mobile SDK? Do we have any code samples to refer? This is something that is just getting started. If you build an Aura component or a Lightning component with a .app extension, you can reference that inside mobile SDK if you use the hybrid remote pattern. It should work like referencing any other Visualforce page, and we will definitely try to get more code references to you. What are your views on having multiple communities? So we have G plus Mobile SDK community, Stack Exchange, and internal Salesforce developer community promoted on the cloud developer page. As a user, I find this confusing. I'll admit that this has been a challenge for us. We've tried to have one single community, but our developers have opinions and they like to reside on different communities. And so our approach has been to try to be wherever you are. I'm more than happy to listen to feedback and try to find the best approach. It's just that communities are so personal. People have different preferences. Sometimes when a community becomes too popular or too broad, certain people leave and want something that's more niche and specific to their topic. And so there's no perfect approach here, but we're very happy to listen. Let us know wherever you may be, and we'll try to make sure that you get answers whenever you ask them. How will the mobile SDK architecture used, and when we already have Salesforce 1, what's the point? That's a great question. Our customers do have questions. Should I build customizations within Salesforce 1? Or should I build a custom mobile app? And now that Christoph has showed you a lot of flexibility that you can have with Lightning components and really customize Salesforce 1, the question might arise, why would I ever want to build a standalone app? And the answer here, it really depends on what you're trying to build. If you have internal employee use cases and you like the Salesforce 1 navigation pattern, you like the concept of actions, you want to reference chatter, Salesforce 1 is great. It's a phenomenal approach. There are tremendous advantages that you can tweak your code and the changes are automatically deployed to your users without having to republish to the App Store. We also have customers that want to have 100% control over the user experience. They want to have different navigation patterns. They want to have a different look and feel. They want to totally brand it. Or they have more sophisticated requirements like synchronizing hundreds of thousands of records offline. Or they just want to have a dedicated user experience and an app that lives side by side with Salesforce 1. And so there are lots of reasons why somebody would build another app using the mobile SDK. It really comes down to the use case that you're trying to solve. And I would recommend start with Salesforce 1, start with Lightning components, maximize those capabilities. And if you feel you need to do more, go with a custom mobile SDK app. When will we expect full offline capability with Salesforce 1? So the latest release that just shipped as part of our Summer 16 release does have full offline beta support. And it's going to go GA in the next release, Safe Harbor, of course, that lets you synchronize records and access them offline. So you can view, modify, edit, delete, and Salesforce 1 will even handle conflict resolution. So I suggest get the latest version of Salesforce 1 and play around with some of those offline capabilities. Are you publishing these components shown in the app and other samples on the App Exchange? I think Christoph did a great job pointing everybody to the dreamhouse.io website, and that's where we have a lot of the code, as well as some of the GitHub repos where we're churning out the code faster and still experimenting. How can we access Smart Store? What's the difference between App Exchange and Smart Store? For us, Smart Store is a core component of the SDK. It's a way for developers to insert their records for offline access. What's really cool is that Smart Store is also used by Salesforce 1 to do all of the offline storage. So we're pretty much using the exact same components that we're sharing with the community. And if you want to get access to more code, that's when you would go to the App Exchange. Christoph, do you want to handle the next one? We can talk about some of the developer tools and not just our console.
Yeah, so and not to accept. Okay, so I think definitely for the mobile okay, so for the mobile SDK, the idea is that we want you to be able to use the tool that you like, because if you build a native iOS, obviously you'll use Xcode or the equivalent for Android or Visual Studio. So the idea there is to let you use the tool that you like, even for hybrid. I mean, people like, as you noticed, I'm using WebStorm for JavaScript development, but other people are using Sublime or Atom or whatever. So if the question, so that's essentially, once you build an application with the mobile SDK, you're building something custom, and the idea is to let you use the tool that you like for that specific platform.
Yep, great answer. And again, just like with the developer forum question, our community has a lot of different preferences, and we try to be wherever you may be. And for mobile apps, we find that a lot of developers use other tools, and that's why we support CocoaPods, Gradle, and all sorts of enabling technologies that lets you use the tools without breaking the flow. And Christoph, can you do the other question? Do you have to add core support for Salesforce config for that Heroku app?
Wait, I don't see.
Line 64.
Line 64. Oh, um, so core support obviously is if you from an external app you want to from the browser access a REST service from a different domain, then you have to enable CORS. Or, traditionally people have been using a proxy, but obviously CORS is a better solution to do that. As far as the mobile SDK running, natively, you're not bound by the same limitations as the browser. So inside your mobile device, you don't have to use, you don't have to enable CORS. But from the browser, definitely.
Okay. As we see the customer side app, do we need to be familiar with iOS and or Android development? And I think these questions are really, really indicative of our audience. I saw another question saying that, well, if I have to write code, what's the point? There are different approaches to building apps, and on this call we have professional iOS developers that want to use Swift. We have professional Android developers, JavaScript developers, web developers, and developers that want to use drag and drop tools. And that's really the point here. We're offering everything you would ever need to build any app using your favorite approach on AppCloud Mobile. And we're also encouraging people to get out of their comfort zone and start doing more with our tools. Because we genuinely believe that web developers that know JavaScript can now build very powerful hybrid apps just like the Dreamhouse. All it is JavaScript and some HTML. And now with React Native, you can use JavaScript and a lot of your familiar paradigms to build native apps using native scrollers, native components, and native user interfaces. This is really the exciting part about the mobile industry today, the state of mobile development and the direction of AppCloud Mobile. We're here to support everybody. And I just suggest get started. Download Salesforce One, create a developer org, go through our numerous Trailhead sections, and start cranking out these apps. A lot of you will see that this is not scary, that it is approachable. We've gone through all these lengths to make it possible. And let us know where you get stuck. Let us know what you'd like to see more of. But I really believe that we're going to get rid of this distinction of like this is a purely native development shop or a purely web shop. This is all about additive technologies and enabling people to be productive using whatever tools they know and learn and grow over time. The next series of questions deals with push notifications. Can you do it on Android? How do you get the certificates? We actually have... We cover this inside our developer guide. There's a section. And also we have several videos on YouTube that walk you through a step-by-step process. Unfortunately, it's not trivial. You do have to generate some certificates, upload them to the push services from Apple or Google, and then include them when you create and distribute your mobile app. It's not easy, not for the faint of heart if you're doing it for the very first time, but we do have resources. And there was another question that dealt with custom push notifications inside Salesforce One. Today you can do approval notifications, but custom app notifications are coming, and that's on the roadmap. Next question. How can we integrate a Salesforce Cordova plugin in our existing iOS apps for the enterprise? What we distribute is available on CocoaPods, so you can use the Salesforce Identity Pod inside your existing apps. And we do have documentation and videos on YouTube that show you how to integrate our pods into an existing app. So that is definitely a supported pattern. Can we enable SSO, one mobile app to another mobile app? Not today. We are debating adding the ability to share a keychain amongst apps that use the same certificate and the same app bundle ID. And we hope to put that on the roadmap and get it out there pretty soon. Can we host a customer-facing app on Heroku and use Salesforce Connect to sync back with Force.com? Yes, you can. And I believe Christoph just showed an excellent demo for enabling such a use case. And the last question, can I use cross-platform tools as Xamarin? Yes, you can. We have a Windows SDK that is using the universal runtimes so that you can leverage those libraries in conjunction with anything you use with Xamarin. And we have several customers that are trying that out as we speak. If you go down that path, please let us know what you find. And just another great example of how yet another technology that is thought after by our vast developer community. And I'll just leave it at that. Please send us your questions. I don't want this to be the end of this conversation. Post, tweet, open up tickets on GitHub. Let us know where you're stuck. Let us know whether you need better sales collateral or training material. Everything we show today will be available to you, all the architectures, all the diagrams. And again, let us know what you think. We are going to release this 3 times a year. We're going to push this forward, and we're going to listen to you. So thank you very, very much.
Thanks, everybody.